degree from University of Colorado. Please welcome to the stage Senator Cory Gardner.
Well, good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today. I'm honored that ARPA-E invited me to deliver this address, to have the opportunity to do so in front of an incredibly talented group of people, hardworking science researchers, and I'm even talking about the media, so thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you today. When I first found out about this opportunity to learn more about ARPA-E, and that they wanted me to speak today, I was both humbled and certainly apprehensive about the opportunity. Apprehensive, not because I don't believe in the great work that ARPA-E is continuing to do, or because I don't share the vision of a robust research enterprise. I absolutely do. But because I'm the guy who ditched my aspiration as a watershed scientist at Colorado State University when I saw the course prerequisites were fluid dynamics and hydraulic engineering. Let me just say to this scientific crowd, thank you for doing the type of work that many of us simply weren't cut out to do. Now, even though I ultimately chose a different path, I've always been fascinated with science, exploring and tinkering with things. I think as a child, I grew up in a little tiny town in Yuma, Colorado. It's the Eastern Plains. It's the part of the state that most people don't even recognize as in Colorado. They think of it more as Kansas. It's the place that at the bottom of the television screen, tornado coming, take cover, is often seen. Even my kids are wondering why I continue to insist that they go outside to explore when they see hailstorm coming, take cover throughout the summer. But if you really know that little town of Yuma, it's a gold mine for sparking curiosity. I would always chat with the mechanics at our farm equipment dealership who installed the parts on our farm equipment. I stared for hours trying to figure out how the giant sprinklers were making their way around the quarters of irrigated ground, about how samples of leaves, bugs, and dirt would be brought into the house for inspection, which I would regularly receive punishment for because I made the bathtub pretty dirty fairly often. But I loved digging holes in the sandbox, going outside to discover what it was that was around us. In fact, I had a working hypothesis as a 6-year-old digging holes that I could find my way eventually across Main Street to my grandmother's house. And I knew that if I dug far enough for long enough, I could find grandmother's candy pantry and have some opportunities to help invite neighbors to my secret stash in the hole that I could dig. Unfortunately, the hypothesis failed, and I never bragged about my conclusions or the fact that it failed, and never talked about the failure of that first scientific discovery. But it was an incredible opportunity to get out and to continue to do what we do best in Colorado, and that's our love of the great outdoors, and to move on eventually to bigger and greater things. I wasn't the only one who was inspired by going outside, though. When I was 9 years old, I wrote a letter to NASA, wondering how it was that I could become an astronaut, what I could do to join the incredible flight crews that we would see regularly on TV, launches of the space shuttle, because space exploration had grabbed my attention, and I simply couldn't get enough answers to the questions that I had about space exploration. I remember like it was yesterday, when I was a child in school, and they carted in the TV with the VCR. Now remember, this was a long time ago, so the school only had 2 TVs and 2 VCRs to be able to cart that into the room so we could watch the Space Shuttle Challenger. I remember watching the Space Shuttle Challenger, having no idea that years later, of course, launches of the Space Shuttle would become so regular, launches of rockets and satellites would become so regular in our lives that they wouldn't even be broadcast on TV anymore. And I remember President Reagan's voice when he spoke directly to the nation the evening of that Challenger flight about the horrible tragedy that befell these space pioneers. And so many Americans like my peers and I who looked up to them in Yuma and beyond, and what it meant to the future of space exploration. But we knew as a nation that defeat, however painful, cannot be the end. America is a country that has thrived on its commitment to find solutions, to forge ahead against the odds, against the naysayers, and in the direction of renewed hope. At the time of this tragedy, very few would have expected launches into space becoming regular things, common occurrences that you just couldn't even find on TV. This country has a history of lifting the pragmatists and the problem solvers. We're builders, dreamers, and innovators with diverse backgrounds, but a unique zeal to get things done. And you all, as researchers, scientists, and engineers, are the foundation of this character. Just like the great unknown of space, we don't know what the next great scientific breakthrough is going to be. But a commitment to research is a commitment to the idea that we still believe that breakthroughs are there to be had because we believe in you. So when I hear from many scientists and researchers in Colorado and beyond about your hopes that President Trump recognizes the values of preserving a healthy environment for American research and development, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Research, exploration, and curiosity driving it are fundamental aspects of our American character. But as with any other programs and investments or initiatives of any administration, we must make our case loud and clear with as much and many diverse voices on the topic as we can muster. And we must also keep in mind the circumstances that our nation faces. Our country's debt is nearly $20 trillion and growing every day. Our infrastructure needs improvement. Our tax code is desperately in need of reform. And our enemies around the globe are plotting day and night to attack the United States and our Western way of life. Congress in this country have never lacked for problems and issues to tackle, and I have no doubt that together, you and I, we can rise to meet these challenges. Because now is as critical a time as ever for federal researchers, technologists, entrepreneurs, investors, and others involved with research and development in the research and development space to come together and highlight the strength of our capabilities with a unified message. Investment in research is a paradox. I think you know this. Our federal dollars are precariously placed on the cusp of failure, yet also on the cusp of unimaginable success. At the heart of this balancing act lies the fundamental question policymakers must ask themselves each and every day. Is federal investment in research and development worth it for the United States? Let's start on the economic front. Critics may decry the price tag of some research projects. And no doubt there have been instances in which hardworking taxpayers' dollars were either misused or could have been better used. And there is also no doubt that scientists, policymakers, and investors must be better communicators about the research that you all here are doing, putting it in layman's terms, where possible to increase public awareness and understanding, better explaining why your work has the potential to positively impact the lives of those living in my hometown and all around. With all that in mind, though, is federal investment in research and development worth it when it comes to potential economic benefits? Just a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to visit with a group of physicists from Colorado who were affiliated with the American Physical Society, who noted that a 1% increase in funding for research and development results in a corresponding 0.13% increase in gross domestic product. For those of you like me, and I'm afraid there are none like me in this room, I would need a calculator for that equation. To do this math, that's an increase of $24 billion given our current GDP. And in Colorado, our more than 24 federal labs contribute almost $2 billion annually to the state, and those labs have put nearly 8,000 Coloradans directly into high-paying jobs. Coupled with significant investments from the National Science Foundation, the Department of Energy, and private technology and innovation companies, among others, the research economy is alive and well in Colorado and across this nation. In both private conversations and public hearings, I've sought commitments from President Trump's nominees for key cabinet positions, including Wilbur Ross at the Department of Commerce and Governor Rick Perry at the Department of Energy, that they will continue to recognize the value of R&D investment. With Secretary Ross, I emphasized the important work happening at the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, which has a major campus in Boulder, Colorado. NIST's Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program assists manufacturing companies in developing new technologies and helping get those technologies across to the private sector, commercialization, increasing the values of those companies. According to their annual report, for every $1 in new federal investment, the MEP program generates an average of $17 in new sales growth. I'm proud that Colorado's MEP Center Manufacturer's Edge has been a part of that success. And with Governor Perry, I emphasized the work that's happening at one of the most incredible federal laboratories in our country, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, NREL, which is headquartered in Golden, Colorado. NREL focuses on advancing the science, engineering, and research of renewable energy and energy efficiency, grid modernization efforts, and advanced transportation solutions. NREL's annual nationwide impact is more than $870 million for every $1 the Department of Energy invests in NREL. It attracts a further private sector investment of $5. Governor Perry publicly committed to me that he will visit National Renewable Energy Laboratory facilities, and I look forward to hosting him in Colorado and showcasing the incredible work that is being done there. And so the answer is pretty obvious. Is federal research and development does it provide the economic benefit that this country expects? The answer is yes. And so let's turn to the question next of necessity of R&D. Some may argue that the private sector can provide all of the investment dollars and laboratory space necessary for research and development, and that the federal government's role is unnecessary. It's true that major corporations in the United States invest billions of dollars annually in research and development. According to Dr. Kelvin Drogemeyer, who many of you know, the past vice chair of the National Science Board, the private sector funds approximately 2/3 and performs approximately 3/4 of R&D in the United States. Those investors and companies, some of whom are here at this event this morning, deserve our sincere appreciation for believing in the future and the importance of innovation and development. But there are instances in which the private sector, private investment alone simply isn't going to be enough or doesn't make enough economic sense for businesses to make it sufficient, make it itself sufficient to generate the kind of breakthroughs that we are looking for. Despite funding a significant portion of R&D in the United States, the private sector spends most of its money on the development side, leaving the federal government to put money toward the most uncertain research aspects. That's the role of the federal government, the most uncertain aspects. Sometimes those research dollars fail to materialize in a new innovation, and sometimes those federal dollars result in innovations that revolutionize the world. For example, the algorithm behind Google's search engine and the glass screen on your iPhone were first developed using federal research dollars. The private sector was able to turn those developments into unimaginably successful projects, but they wouldn't have been possible without a federally funded backstop. So is federal R&D investment, is it worth it to further private sector innovation in the United States? Here too, the answer is clear. Yes. The private sector and federal government are not simply focused on the domestic opportunities for advancing U.S. innovation, research, and development. We also face increasing competition from abroad that threatens to topple the United States from its spot as a world leader in R&D. Developing countries like China and India are pouring increasingly large sums of government money into their efforts, into their nation's respective R&D initiatives. According to the National Science Board's 2016 Science and Engineering Indicators report, China spends more than $335 billion annually on research and development, making them the second largest country in R&D behind the United States. And China is on track to eclipse the entire European Union in terms of R&D spending as well. Since 2000, China has surpassed France, Germany, and Japan in total annual domestic investments in R&D. At this pace, China is expected to surpass the United States in the near future, knocking us out of the #1 spot. Imagine a world where China discovers the latest and greatest innovations. It's a world where budding scientists and entrepreneurs would flock to Guangzhou and Beijing over San Francisco and Boulder. It's a world where free thinking and public-private partnerships might give way to party line and centralized bureaucracy. Ultimately, it's a world that would deprive the United States of our reputation around the globe as the scientific innovator-in-chief and strip us of a major driver of our economy and take that dream of space exploration and scientific breakthrough from every child. Just last week, I was at an event in Colorado speaking with a young Indian immigrant employed in my state's booming technology industry. His story was like so many other American immigrant stories. He saw hopes and promise in the United States, and he wanted to experience that himself from the greatest nation on the face of this earth. And when I asked this young man, I said, "Why America? What attracted you to this country over any other that you could have gone to?" This young man replied, "The United States is a country that isn't afraid to dream big. Think of that for a moment. America is a country where we are not afraid to dream big. You in this room, as scientists in the United States, are at the heart of our nation's dreamers. When we invest in federal research and development, we're investing in the dreams of our nation's scientists. When we invest in research and development, we're investing in the dreams of people around the globe who still believe there is something special about this country. When we invest in research and development, we're investing in the American dream. When we invest in research and development, we're putting America first. And the return on these investments extend beyond the research-backed products that we use on a daily basis, or the services resulting from new scientific innovation, or any other tangible benefits that R&D provides. The return on these investments is keeping alive that spirit of American ingenuity. It's keeping alive that spark in young scientists around and technologies that set us apart from the many countries around the world. So yes, these investments are worth it to keep America globally competitive. But can we maintain our #1 spot? This question is what sparked the initial America Competes legislation that passed into law a decade ago in 2007, which created ARPA-E. Building on publications like the National Academy of Sciences Rising Above the Gathering Storm, the original Competes legislation and its authors were committed to preserving America's unique role in the world's research and development enterprise. These authors firmly believed that we must maintain our spot at the top as the world's biggest innovator in R&D, and all of us agree. They understood that ascendant nations around the globe pose both national security and economic challenges that extend beyond traditional defense and trade concerns, and go straight to the core issues like, what is the future of innovation in our country going to be? One could even say that they pioneered the America First vision for our research and development funding and policy. Such a recognition helped build a bipartisan support around robust investment in American R&D enterprise and authorized substantial new federal funding, including ARPA-E. That support was carried on in 2010 with the reauthorization of the America Competes bill, but that act unfortunately lapsed 4 years ago in 2013 without subsequent reauthorization. In the debates that followed, there were legitimate disagreements about how best to chart a path forward for American science and R&D. Ultimately, those disagreements at times turned into contentious partisan fights. Hopes waned for a renewed bipartisan R&D vision and scientific investment in the U.S. Given some of the messy and partisan fights surrounding science and research issues, some began to question whether it was really even worth it to continue to pursue a bipartisan science and R&D agenda. This challenge is what invited me to lead the introduction of the American Innovation and Competitiveness Act with Senator Gary Peters, a Democrat from Michigan. Senator Peters and I believe that yes, it is absolutely worth it to pursue a bipartisan agenda, and that yes, we can get it done in science and research and development. There were a lot of naysayers, I've got to tell you, at the very beginning of this process. But we were very excited to get the Innovation Act across the finish line as one of the very last bills of the 114th Congress to make it to President Obama's desk. Over the course of 18 months, our Innovation and Competitiveness Working Group convened discussions with academia, scientists, innovators, entrepreneurs, and industry to discuss what was working in U.S. science policy and what was not working in U.S. science policy. Throughout this process, we held the goal that it was important that we have bipartisan solutions to these issues, and we had the outstanding support of Chairman John Thune and Ranking Member Bill Nelson at the Commerce Committee as we pursued this bipartisan solution. And at the end of the day, despite the naysayers, we were left with a bipartisan package that reaffirmed the importance of science and research and development. We made it clear that yes, these issues do merit consistent federal attention, and that yes, it still can be done in a bipartisan fashion. But for all of these successes of the Innovation Act, we also had some shortcomings. We still have work to do regarding funding authorizations and determining what messages we want to send to the world with that number. I continue to support a 4% increase for commerce agencies over a number of years that will lead to the doubling of our funding, and we can find a path forward on these issues. But perhaps the most important accomplishment through reauthorization of Competes is the energy title that authorized ARPA-E, and we still have to pass that legislation. Last Congress, I co-sponsored Senator Lamar Alexander's E-Competes legislation that would have increased authorizations for ARPA-E and sent a message of robust support in energy and ARPA-E and innovation around the world. While we didn't get it through the Congress last year, I believe we can this Congress. It remains as important as ever that we have the leadership from Lamar Alexander, from you and ARPA-E to make sure that we are successful in this effort. So obviously there's still a lot of work to be done in science, in both the research and development sector and the public policy front. But without this fundamental component, without research, nuclear power, the research done by ARPA-E, nuclear power wouldn't be a core electricity resource. And wind and solar technologies would never have been fully realized. It was communication between researchers that triggered the invention and the growth of the internet, a tool so commonplace today that our children and grandchildren cannot even imagine a world without it. Science has revolutionized agriculture and helped us improve fertilization and plant breeding technologies, providing both greater consumer choice and relief to pockets of hunger around the globe. Supercomputing is no longer an idea in the distant future. As we speak, supercomputers are enabling researchers to test a spectrum of innovations that they would never complete in a lifetime of lab experimentation. Exascale computing promises even greater advancements. Think of what we could solve with a computer that's 50 times as powerful as the most powerful, best supercomputing ability today. And those here today working with ARPA-E have undertaken such incredible and imaginative research to produce some of the most significant scientific achievements as well. Through programs like BEAST, IDEAS, and REACT, ARPA-E has helped set the standard for every energy research in the United States and across the globe. But the question for all of you is, what is next? How are you going to change and continue to change the world? How will you keep young minds engaged? Several years ago, a young man suffering from cancer appealed to the Make-A-Wish Foundation to fulfill his lifetime and lifelong dream, to become a scientist. The foundation arranged for him to visit the National Renewable Energy Laboratory for a day to meet with scientists, tour the laboratories, and to test out some of the projects himself. Even of this incredible time of adversity for this young man, he was able to briefly experience what you all experience each and every day. The rush of the unknown, the satisfaction of discovery, and the hope for a brighter future. It was the dedication of scientists like you here today who made that dream possible. It's scientists like you here today who continue to keep those hopes and dreams alive for men and women like that young man across the country. And I can't help but to think about my days growing up in my hometown and my curiosity driven by the world around me. And so if I could offer any advice as a non-scientist to you, it would be this: dare to reach for the next greatest innovation. Go outside. Embrace the spirit of America that encourages us not to be afraid to dream big. And as we begin this new Congress, and as we begin this new administration, our country, and indeed our world, is relying on all of you to dream big and to do big things. Thanks very much for the incredible work you do at ARPA-E, and I look forward to our continued work together.